All right, everybody. Welcome, guys. This is Dr. Latifat, aka MoneyFit MD. Welcome to my space. I'm so glad you guys are listening to me today. If you're listening or you're watching, whether that's on my podcast or my vlog, I'm just glad that I'm here. So get ready because, as you know, I bring awesome guests on my show. Today, I have someone that is amazing. And before you tell me that, yeah, Latifa, you say that all the time, I have to remind you guys of my goosebump test. So I have this thing, it's like the goosebump test, where I think about people that I want to invite and I think about what we're going to talk about. If I get goosebumps about the excitement of what we're going to cover and how helpful it is, then it's a yes. So this is another positive goosebump test. And let me know if you're like, oh, Latifa, your goosebumps test is like, has too many high false negatives or false positive, whatever it is. But anyways, my point is that I'm super excited to have Dr. Setty here with me today. I'm going to call her Savitha. She's a physician. She's a mom. She's an amazing mom. She's a single mom. She's also a real estate investor. And the reason why I brought her here is because she has a ton of stuff that we can learn from, you can learn from, I can learn from. And get ready because this is going to be a conversation that you're so going to be glad that you're a part of. So welcome, Sabitha.
Oh my goodness. You know what? I just got the goosebumps after that introduction.
Yes. So if you think my goosebump test is wrong, I don't want to hear about it because I'm right.
You are right. That N of one, boy. I thank you for that beautiful introduction. I really appreciate it. And I'm going to try to live up to it. That is amazing.
The thing is, you don't even have to try because, I mean, you don't have to try. It already is. So, but tell us, I want you to go ahead, brag on yourself. Tell us exactly who you are, what you do, and all that good stuff.
Woo, okay, so I don't know if I'll brag on myself, but I will lay out the facts as I perceive them, okay? So as Latifa mentioned, I am a single mom by choice. So I have a little boy, he's about 6.5 now. I don't know when you guys are listening to this, he could be going on 15, actually. He probably is going
There it is.
Yeah. I am pulmonary critical care trained, and I kind of have branded myself as the unorthodox doc because I feel like my life has just been very unorthodox. And I've just accepted that that is the way my world is going to be. I went to medical school at 28, which is, about 6 years later than most people go. And after I did med school, I went to residency in New York. I did 3 years there. I had kind of some life-altering situations that happened after residency, so I took a year off. I moved back to Arizona. I worked full-time as a hospitalist. And it was a locums position, but it was a full-time gig. And I did that for a year. And then I decided, well, gosh, I think I really want to go back and do a fellowship. It was one of those things where I had a taste of a real salary. And then I also realized that I didn't 100% have the job satisfaction that I wanted. So I went back to New York. I did 3 more years of fellowship. At this point, I don't even know. I think I was 38 or 39 when I finished my training. Maybe it was 38. And I took a job in private practice back in Phoenix or Scottsdale, moved back home, rented a fancy apartment, had my first doctor salary, bought all the fancy clothes, leased the fancy car. I mean, I really, I look back on that and I think, I made all the mistakes.
Tell me, enjoy it? Did you enjoy it?
Well, I did in the moment. I'll be honest. I mean, I think for your listeners, I did in the moment. And I think a lot of that has to do with that, when you are in medicine or whether you're in medicine or any other profession that kind of keeps you, captive in a particular socioeconomic class for a really long time, there's this delayed gratification and there's this sense of I've worked hard enough and I deserve this. And I fell victim to that because, I was driving the Audi, I was wearing all the fancy clothes, I was doing all the things that I felt like I had given up for 10 years. And it's, I'm certainly not criticizing that lifestyle. I think that if it gives you joy, you should do it. I'm not necessarily sure I got joy out of it. I just felt like I waited long enough to be able to afford these things, and I just wanted it. It's just like I wanted to drive an Audi. I'm not even a car. Ironically, I'm not even a car person, so it was kind of.
That's funny. What kind of car do you drive now? I'm curious.
I have a Honda.
You're like, now I'm practical.
Yeah, I have a Honda minivan, and I have a Honda Civic that I drive to and from work. So
Love
yeah.
it. Love it. So where did your son come into the picture in that journey?
Oh, good question. So he came in late in the game. I struggled with IVF for a couple of years, and then he came around. I gave birth to him when I was 42.
Fantastic.
So talk about a life-changing experience. He was my golden egg, and completely. I had like a complete mind shift, when after he was born. There was this deep realization that as a single parent, it's truly up to me, right? Like everything. And I realized, gosh, even if I sprained my ankle and couldn't work 12-hour shifts in the ICU, things would be very different. And I started to, shortly after he was born, actually, he was born in 2014, I started to think, I need other streams of income, and I need to secure our future. I need to secure our life in a way that is not necessarily tied to the hospital or to a practice or, a 9 to 5, if that's your thing. So that's kind of where my journey started.
So with a lot of us physicians, I think one of the reasons why we have burnout is because of this lack of flexibility, right? And I think about my journey as a physician. I think about going through residency, fellowship, and all that stuff. And I'm like grateful that I have a partner whose hours was able to help make the difference, right? But for someone that's a single mom, that's even more important. I mean, it takes a village regardless, or whether that's a spouse or a nanny or a grandparent or sibling or whatever. But that flexibility comes even more importantly to single moms.
Yes, yes. And you're exactly right. If you don't have a support system or a village, then you rely on yourself, and you've got to plan ahead, because none of us really know what's going to happen tomorrow, right?
So are you still practicing currently?
Yes, I took a few months off recently because I'm building a side business.
We're
And
gonna hear all about it, by the way.
Okay.
You're gonna teach us everything we need to know today.
Yeah, I mean, I'm building a side business right now, and I got my real estate license, etc. But yes, when I was full-time physicianing, I was 15, 16 days a month, pulmonary critical care, 12, 13 hours a day, add the commute in, 14 hours a day. So yes, I relied on a nanny very heavily. And I think, having childcare in place is really, obviously it's a necessity if you're leaving the house and going to work. But I also think that having security from other, financial sources is just as valuable as well.
Absolutely. And honestly, even with COVID now, even if you're working from home, you still need reliable, kid source, because you're like doing video,
Yeah.
calls with patients. I'm a GI doc, you're talking about abdominal pain or whatever, whatever. And then you hear a little kid go, "Hi, mommy, can I have some milk?" Right.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
And, kids, they love coming in at like the quote unquote perfect time.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, regardless of what you work, and I think there's a lot of judgment that comes up for women in general, and we see it a lot in women physicians where we're expected to practice medicine like we have no kids or family, and we're expected to mother like we have no job. So just letting go of those societal expectations and realizing that our lives have value and we need to self-perfuse. If we're burnt out, if we are cranky, if our mental health is not taken care of, it's hard to be the kind of parent we want to be. And that applies whether you're single or not single.
Yes, amen. I always tell this story. When I was in my first practice, it was mostly men. I was the only female critical care doctor. We had women pulmonary on the pulmonary side, but none in the ICU. And I had one of the middle-aged docs said to me, "I don't really understand why you ever need 3 days off in a row." And I said, Well, because I don't have a spouse or a wife at home who's doing the laundry, waiting for the cable guy, getting the groceries, picking up the dry cleaning, cleaning the house, taking care of the kid, and laying out my clothes in the morning. And it's fascinating because as women in medicine, that's a side of reality that our male counterparts don't want to acknowledge, or some of them don't want to acknowledge, I should say. So I always think back to that story and I think, wow, like, wouldn't it be nice to be on that side of the fence and be able to just show up to work and not have to do anything else?
I know. I know. I agree with you 100%.
Yeah.
I don't know if you know about this or not. So I was interviewed recently on the Today Show. It was myself, Dr. Sabri, and yes, and one of our other amazing PMG colleagues in Los Angeles. And this is part of what we're talking about, the fact that there's so many things that are unique to, and I don't want to say that men don't go through their stuff, they do as well, but we know that most of the case with women physicians, there's just a different kind of societal expectations that goes beyond just how we practice medicine, but affects how we think about money, how we think about side gigs, and how we think about like income sources, how we spend our time, how we earn our time, what's working too much, what's not working, all this baggage that we also tend to internalize, right? We start to believe it and it shows up in our life, it shows up in our finances. So a lot of what I talk about in this money space is actually helping women physicians unlearn the things that we've been taught growing up, the things we've been taught in medicine, the things that we have also assimilated into just by existing in this world. So you saying that right now, I 100%.
Yes.
I'm feeling you, sister. I'm feeling you.
Yeah.
So one of the things that Dr. Sabitha does is she does real estate. And I'm a huge fan of diversifying income source because, I mean, COVID has taught us that no job is secure. And ultimately, there are many pathways to becoming financially independent. I believe that real estate is one that is an opportunity for a lot of us physicians, whether you're men or female. And there are different ways of doing it. So you have an approach that you use in real estate. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
I love it. Okay, so my journey started well, as I mentioned, probably in 2014 after my son was born. And I was starting to think about passive streams of income. In 2016 or 17, the years are sort of blurring together, but I went to Los Angeles for a friend's giving. My kid was about 3. And my friends were like, oh, just go ahead and stay with us. And I thought, he's a rooster. He actually wakes up at 5 a.m. screaming, and I cannot subject you to that. So I ventured out into my first Airbnb. Okay. So I'm like 40 something right now. And I went out and got my first Airbnb. And because I had stayed at a hotel the year before for a trip to San Diego with a friend and my son, and it was the worst experience ever. I mean, like my son was basically like licking the furniture because he was 2. And I thought, oh my God, we've got to get out of here. And I'm never going to stay in a hotel again. So fast forward, stay in our first Airbnb. My kid was still napping. So he's in another bedroom napping. My girlfriend comes over. We're sitting on the couch. We're having this lovely conversation because there is space, right? There's space. There's a kitchen, there's a bathroom, there's a bedroom. And she and I are just talking, and she's like, hey, I'm curious, how much is this costing you a night? And I tell her, and then I'm a huge fan of Zillow and Redfin and all the real estate sites. So we get on there, we look up this apartment because now we know the address, and we see what it's sold for. We calculate how much I'm paying per night. We do some rough estimations of, what it costs to furnish it, how much it would cost to clean it, and all these things. And I swear it didn't take long for us to realize, oh my gosh, this is so lucrative. And even in downtown Los Angeles, it was like just this concept of, I am so enjoying my space. I am so happy to be paying X number of dollars a night. And what a joy it is to have a bedroom and all this space and a place to cook and have snacks and all the things. So honestly, it was that brainstorming session that really tipped things over for me. And fast forward 6 months, I bought my first property. with the intention of doing short-term rental. And I hit all the roadblocks, Latifa, let me tell you.
Tell me, tell me.
There's some roadblocks. So I bought this property. My real estate agent was amazing. It's this 3-bedroom, 2-bath home in Sedona. And she's like, you could just get it ready and put it on the market like in a couple of months. And I was like, listen, it needs new carpet, it needs new floors, it needs new paint, it needs a new kitchen. And I was in my head, I was like, what kind of place would I want to rent? And that was my first roadblock. Okay. So you don't have to put a short-term rental on the market that is your style and taste. You just need to have an audience and a ideal guest. And let me tell you, there is a guest for every place.
Yep.
Right. And so, but I got stuck and I wanted to turn this place into something that I would rent. Well, it took me a year and a half of unnecessary hold time to get that property ready and on the market.
Wow.
And in that, yes. So for your audience, I would say, do not do what I did. I think I think that was an investor mistake, was feeling like, oh, this place needs to be perfect and it needs to be my standards. Because the reality is it doesn't. So I did a lot of things in that year and a half. I went from interviewing contractors and getting discouraged and stopping to switching over and saying, I'm going to just put it on the long-term rental market so that I don't have to do paint and floors and all this stuff. And when I realized that I wasn't going to get the money that I really wanted to out of that property, I switched gears back and I started back over and I started interviewing more contractors and, all the things. And I just, I think one of the most valuable lessons I got out of that was to believe in yourself, believe in your objective and be clear on it and don't sway. Right? Because I just had so many limiting beliefs like, oh, this is too much work. I'm never going to be able to do it. I'm never going to be able to find a good contractor. How am I going to set up all the furniture? How am I going to manage this? My kid is 3. So that was the foray, the journey into it. I got that property finally renovated, finally up on Airbnb, and the rest is history, really.
So how many properties do you have now on Airbnb?
So now I'm up to 5. And let me just tell you that it gets so much easier as you move forward. And my second property, I closed on September 17th. And that same day, I drove to Colorado for a wedding. And while we were in Colorado, I listed the property on Airbnb and got my first booking before we were even home.
Wow. Yeah. That's amazing.
Yeah.
It's interesting because you called yourself the Unorthodox Doc.
Yes.
Maybe there's some unorthodoxity, I don't know if that's a word about that, but what I'm getting a sense of is you have your own schedule. You have your own timing. Yeah. And what I love about you is that it may seem more extended than average, whatever average is, but doesn't mean it's impossible. Right. And you still figure it out and you still do it. So, and I think that we always assume that the people that get up and running are the typical stories. They're actually not the typical stories. They're the exception to the point. And just imagine what would have happened if you quit after that first property. You're like, oh, Airbnb sucks. This is ridiculous. It always takes a year. And you start to tell yourself the story that actually is not true, but was based on the fact that you had roadblocks that was like classes you had to take in order to get your process right, pretty much.
Yeah. Well, and it's so funny that you say that because like after learning all of that and getting through all those roadblocks, that's when I created my course, because I thought I can really help people just accelerate that year and a half into 6 months,
Absolutely. And once they do it in 6 months, they can do it in 2 months.
Yes, exactly. They could do it in 2 weeks. I mean, I'm seeing some of my, some of the participants in my course there. I'm watching them build these portfolios in just a few months, and it's really amazing.
That's
It's actually
awesome.
like, I mean, in some ways they're outpacing me and I'm like, wait a minute.
Hey, you know what? That's the great thing about teaching and coaching. I
Yes.
always tell people my goal is that my people will be better than me,
Yeah.
right? I mean,
Yeah.
look at all the people, all the teachers that invested in all of us growing up. We may have surpassed what they achieved, but that's like their pride and joy. So I agree with you. You're
Yeah.
like, go you, go everybody. Keep
Go
killing it.
everybody.
Keep
Yes.
killing
Go.
it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So let me ask you, with your course, by the way, how long is your course?
Great question. So it's about 8 weeks, eight modules dripped out weekly, and it's launching again very soon. So courses start again June 14th, and it'll go on sale June 2nd. Yeah.
Oh, that's fantastic. So that's perfect timing because I mean, I hear, and there are many reasons actually why short-term rentals are a great idea for physicians. When it comes to income in general, we
Yes.
talk about what's coming in, we talk about what's going out. Taxes are a huge thing for physicians. So the advantage of short-term real estate is there are specific requirements that you do have to meet, but if you meet those requirements, it can actually help decrease your tax liability. So that's another reason why it's attractive for a lot of people because one is the cash flow, but also the potential tax benefits. Is that something that you guys talk a little bit about in the program?
Oh, we do. We talk a lot about it because that was a huge draw for me as a single woman investing in real estate. I would not be able to become classified as a real estate professional, um, at least not easily. Now I might be because I'm now a licensed real estate agent and I'm really kind of building my portfolio. But when I first started, that would not have been really easily possible. So short-term rentals are, I hate to use the word loophole because it's not a loophole. It's actually a legal designation that if you have a short-term rental, if the average stay is less than 7 days, if you're not providing, concierge type services, you can, and you work at least 100 hours and more than anyone else, or 500 hours, then it's considered, it's kind of in this middle space where it's an active business and you can then take off the depreciation. So you can do a cost segregation study, you have everything bucketed out, and you can have, like $100,000 taken off of your W-2 income because you've depreciated this property. So I know that's kind of a lot of information, and your listeners might be, their heads might be spinning, but it's legal, and I've done it, and I've seen the benefit on my tax returns, and it's huge.
Absolutely. And you're correct because my audience are very wide range. And so when we talk about depreciation, what that means is so if you look at any house that you live in, it's expected that over time the house is going to depreciate in value. And that usually takes about 26 to 30 years or so to happen. There are certain specific requirements that you can reach where you can actually have that house depreciate on paper for a within a shorter period of time. So instead of the house, say, depreciating by 20 grand a year, now you could consolidate that together and it could be 100 grand a year. And the benefit of that, like Dr. Sabitha was saying, is you can, with the permission instruction of your tax person, can help decrease the amount of your tax liability. And for physicians, I mean, I think a lot of times people think physicians have a ton of money. And we can have a lot of money. However, there's so much stuff that goes into the day to day of running the life of a busy physician because you're working maybe 60, 80 hours a week. You have kids, right, that are going to school that you have to make sure their schools are taken care of. How are they going to get from school to home? Especially during COVID, we had people whose childcare were like quitting because they're like, you are my biggest source of infection. I don't want to be in your space, right? So for those that are listening that are like, why do physicians care about money? It's so important to us, just like it is to everybody else, because when our money is taken care of, we can actually practice medicine in a way that's healthy for you as a patient, healthy for us as physicians and our family. And we end up burning out less.
Yeah.
And that's the reason why this is all really important to all of us. And that's why I have Dr. Setty here to
Ah,
tell
yeah.
you all
I
about short-term rentals.
know. Well, and even I'll just piggyback onto what you just said. I don't think a lot of people realize, and I don't think a lot of physicians that are just starting out actually realize how expensive it is to be a physician. And childcare is probably the biggest expense. But if you're looking at private schools or private daycares or any of that, that's a huge expense. And then for me, I've been I've been a solopreneur for a number of years. So I've been a PLLC. And with that comes generally a larger salary, but it comes with a lot more expenses. So just being a physician costs me thousands and thousands of dollars a month. And even a year, right? With our licensing fees, our DEA numbers, all the exams we have to take and everything. So it's important to realize that being a physician is very costly.
Absolutely,
And
absolutely. So let me ask you, if someone is listening to this
yes.
and they're like, okay, well, short term sounds a little kind of interesting. What are some maybe 2 or 3 things you can share with someone that's considering starting a short term rental that at the end of this conversation, they're like, okay, this is great. I think I can start looking. I think I may be interested. I think I definitely have the tools to even learn more or go out and start doing things myself.
Ooh, that's such a good one. Okay,
Let's
so
go. Let's go.
ooh, I've been thinking about this a lot lately because in the world of real estate, a lot of people feel like they have to have a ton of money to get started. And I would like to offer the reverse of that, which is do not worry about the money. The barrier, one of the things I just love about the short-term rental market is that the barrier to entry is so low. And let me just tell you, if you already have an apartment or a house or a condo or a townhome that you're living in, and you have a spare bedroom that you're not using, and you really want to test out the short-term rental market, it's an opportunity.
Hmm.
It is truly an opportunity. You can, if you're comfortable with it, you can rent out a guest room. And let me tell you, if you think that's creepy or weird or whatever, there are ways that you can screen your guest, ask lots of questions, and you always have the right to say no. So you can always only do the things that you're comfortable with. But it's a great sort of entry level way to get into it. And it might be great for things like medical students and residents. When I was in training, the whole world of short-term rentals didn't really exist. I finished my training in 2007 and then 2011 for fellowship. So I lived in New York. I had a beautiful apartment. If Airbnb was around back then, I would have paid my rent by renting out my apartment. I mean, I had plenty of friends. I would have said, hey, listen, I'm going to sleep on your couch for a week and have my rent paid for the month.
Yeah.
So number one, the barrier to entry is really low. And if you have an interest in it, you should get into it. There's ways to rent out driveways. There's ways to rent out backyards. There's ways to rent out garages, storage space, all kinds of things. So that's number one. There's there's something called rental arbitrage, which a lot of people do when they don't have the full-blown capital to invest in their own properties. What they'll do is they'll work with a landlord. They will lease a space and let the landlord know, of course, that their intention is to short-term rental it. And they'll set it up as if they own it. The landlord's very happy because they're getting their set payment that covers whatever cash flow or income they wanted. And then the person that is turning it into a short-term rental is actually capitalizing on that added percentage that you get with short-term rentals. Because I think most people by now understand that short-term rentals are lucrative because the nightly rate is much, much more as a short-term rental than you could get as a long-term rental. So your monthly cash flow is a lot more, and there's just kind of more to go around. So that's another option for people to get into it. And let me think. Those are probably the two biggest things, is that the barrier to entry is really low, take advantage of it, and you have options. And then the third one is if you really want to get into it and you have the capital, it's just very doable. I did it as a single mom. I'm up to 5 units now, and I love it. And I don't have any plans to stop. In fact, I'm looking forward to sort of expanding my market and going outside of Arizona and, getting slightly higher end properties and working it.
So that's interesting. So if you think about the fact that, so I'm a mom, I have a family, you have a kid as well. When we're going on vacation, that kind of short-term rentals we're looking for is different from the kind of short-term rentals we would have looked for when we were residents, five of us going to a conference together,
Yeah,
right? So it just goes back to what you said earlier, meaning that there is someone looking for the kind of rental that you're trying to offer.
100%. 100%. There's all sorts of needs out there. And I think as long as you think about your target guest, your ideal audience, you can fit what they need, right? And it can fit within your budget. Um,
Absolutely.
there are people like my properties. I have a couple in Phoenix that are just studio apartments. But believe it or not, sometimes during the year they rent for $60 a night, which is not a lot of money, but guess what? $60 a night times 30 nights pays the mortgage on almost the entire property, and there's 4 apartments in there.
That's
So
awesome.
yeah, and it fits a need for certain travelers who just need that little bit of space. They're not looking to spend $300 a night or $1,000 a night. And I'll tell you, like, I've been at different stages in my life as well, where the apartment that I rented in Los Angeles was probably 150 a night because it was downtown Los Angeles. But most recently, I stayed in a little house in Kanab, Utah. Just we needed one night, and it was available, and it was like $89 or something. And it's because that's all we needed. We just needed a break point, a place to sleep and shower. It was clean. It was fine for what we needed. And then I think about, trips that I'm planning with my med school friends, and we would probably rent with us and all of our families and kids. We'd probably go for the $4,000 a night place, right? Because when you break it down, technically it's less per family than you would spend
Hmm.
at a hotel. And
Absolutely.
and you get to be together, and you get a kitchen and all the things. So there's a property for every person.
We don't have short-term rentals yet. Personally, we do more long-term, but this year, that's our strategy, is to get short-term rentals. And some of the stuff we're talking about right now, I'm like, okay, Latifat, now you have to change your mindset in terms of what kind of property you're trying to buy. It's not
Yes.
all about where would I want to stay, even though I do want it to be a place that we can stay.
Yeah.
But I think that mind shift alone is going to help me move closer and actually just get through the process and start the process, and then we can do it again.
Yes, exactly. And your first property doesn't need to be the place that you would vacation. Now, it could be if you've got the capital and you want to buy the cabin in the Smokies or a beach house, that's great, but it doesn't have to be. And that's the beauty of this niche market, is that you could buy whatever you can afford and you can get it up and running, even if that's your basement or your guest room, and save the capital and then invest in a vacation property that you would want to stay at. So yeah, I just love this market so much. And it also, especially since your audience is mostly women, it's so beautiful to like incorporate in that side of us that wants to be a hostess, right? I think most of us have at least a little piece of that. And it's a beautiful thing to be able to do that in a property and welcome your guests and provide an experience for them and make it comfortable and clean and all of those things. And then you can also sample out your ability to decorate and design, if that's your thing, but you don't really have an outlet for it. So I think
It's
short-term
not my
rentals,
thing. It's
it's
not
not
my
your thing.
thing.
Well, I mean, your background looks beautiful, so I don't
Oh,
know. It
thank
could be
you.
your thing.
Thank you. No, decorating, it's one of those things that I'm like, all right, triage, somebody else, somebody else, somebody else. But it's great. And that's the thing, when you know what your strengths are, you like
Yes.
leverage, right?
Yes.
You're like, okay, I don't
Yeah.
have to be great at everything. I want to own Airbnbs, but I don't want to do the decoration. I don't want to do this. There's so many resources out there that
So
can literally help you get started. Whatever price range you want to start from, wherever you want to start from. And the beauty of programs like yours is it's not just about like step one, step two, but it's helping you deal with those mind blocks
yeah,
that are actually the main reason why we don't do what we want to do.
100%. Yes, exactly. Exactly.
So tell me, if people want to find you, and I'm going to include your information in the notes, but if someone is listening while driving and they're like, oh, how do I find this doctor? Because I really want to learn more about how she can help me build my short-term real estate portfolio. Where can they find you?
Absolutely. So probably the easiest would be to email me at the unorthodox doc @gmail.com. So that's pretty easy. And then I also have a Facebook group for people who are interested in the short-term rental market, and it's called the Unorthodox Doc Short-Term Rental Group, and they can search for that.
Fantastic. I'm in that group, guys. It's awesome. They're sharing. There are tons of people there sharing, and you can literally look at people's names from when they joined to when they bought their properties, and you're like, that's just the impact of community is so huge.
Oh
And
my
I
God.
just love that so many physicians are supporting each other through this whole journey, because ultimately when you win, we all win. And I just love that shift that I've been seeing in medicine these days, and I hope it continues.
Oh my gosh, I love that you said that, because I whenever I'm on my Facebook group, I'm like, how did this happen? I mean, it went from like 40 or 50 of us that were interested in short-term rentals a year, not even a year ago, it was 10 months ago, to almost 900 members now. And I love the community. I absolutely love that people are sharing not only what they've purchased, but also what's limiting them. They're asking for advice, they're getting advice. And what I also love is that the short term rental industry is a business. It's your business. You get to do it however you want to do it and however it makes sense for you. And I love that we've got people in that Facebook group that have the spare bedroom that they're renting out, and then they have the luxury home on the beach. So you've got and everything in between. So you get to learn from all of those experiences, right? And it's just, I mean, it's amazing. And you're right. I've been watching the growth of some people and their portfolios, and it is mind blowing. And
Yes.
I'm just so proud of everyone for jumping in and getting going and doing it. It's amazing.
Well, you set the tone. It's your group. So kudos to you, right? But I want to say huge, huge thank you for just spending this time with me, being so generous with all the information you've shared with us. And if you're listening, I want you to go ahead and check out her Facebook group, check out her program, because ultimately the goal is we want you to have multiple sources of income without burning out. We want you to get rid of that financial worry. We want you to build wealth. We want you to do it whether you're single, whether you're married, whether you're TBD, whether you're it's complicated, whatever that is for you. Just get in there and take care of yourself, because we do care about you. So thank you so much for
Oh,
being here.
you're welcome. Thank you. What a beautiful platform. Thank you for sharing your space with me.
All right, thanks everybody. I will see you or talk to you in the next episode. And of course, if you've loved this, I want you to share it with the women physicians in your life. I want you to go ahead and subscribe, and I want you to go ahead and just share a review and one or two things that you've learned from listening to this. Have a fabulous rest of the week, guys. Bye-bye.